I think we are live. I think we are live. What's up, party people? We'll let a few people get in here. If anybody's joining us tonight, and we're just going to talk and catch up. And I got a special guest tonight that a young gentleman that I'm working with and going to be working with. And I think he is going to be an extreme resource and help to anybody who wants it or needs it, and or can pass it on to somebody who wants it or needs it. So we're going to give a little time for people to come in, and we'll get started pretty soon. But I want to thank everybody for coming in as you do. And then, hey, miss you too. Thank you for joining. Thank you. All right, we got a few people in here. Thank you guys so much for coming in. It's been a while since we chatted. Obviously, a lot has gone on. I miss you guys too. I miss coming on and on this platform and chopping it up with you guys. But we're back, and we're going to do some things. This whole thing was started and called the Ages and Stages for a reason. So here we are. Welcome to the Ages and Stages podcast, where we talk life, love, relationships, businesses, and everything in between, right? Through our lens, my lens, and a community of people that are not perfect, and we're trying to learn from one another. So hello again to everybody, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so we got enough people in here. Thank you again for joining. And so welcome to the Ages Stages podcast again, where we talk life, love, relationship, business, and everything else in between. So this episode or this series I'm starting, it's going to be based upon financial recovery and planning. A lot has been said and done by myself and talked about some of the things and challenges that I've dealt with, not only recently, but maybe through my developmental years as I was growing and learning as an adolescent and trying to navigate an initial learning disability and then overcoming that, but then trying to then overcome some of the other things that probably was a result of those things, trying to prove people wrong and then compensating for other things and pouring into the things that I was good at, but then also always trying to prove people wrong and trying to live through this lens of perfection that I got it all figured out. And so that, and how do we get here to this point where we're talking about financial recovery and planning, is based upon, you guys know I shared, if you saw by now, I don't know, it was over a month or so ago, some of the things that I've been going through with some of the weight that I was carrying that I was freeing myself from. It hurt previous relationships. It hurt my most recent relationship. And I was no longer willing to put myself and others around me that I love through that type of punishment, and where it could be easily corrected and fixed. So primarily, we talked about my financial struggles from the past that's led into my future, and that I'm no longer willing to put myself into those stressful type of lifestyle that I've lived and those around me, because it wasn't harboring positive and long worthy relationships. So I had to look at myself. So I did that, very transparent with you guys about those things, because I needed something and some people to hold me accountable. Yes, I don't know you people, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. And I'm a lover of people. So when I talked about, I shared a lot of my successes with people on television, on social media, and on this platform. I also wanted to show you the negative, my downfalls and my flaws, and not paint this picture of perfection, which I was doing, and I understood, which was harming myself and others around me, and the woman I love, my family, my friends, just, one of those things that it was just time for a cleansing. So with that said, I talked about, what are we going to do now that I've said all this stuff? How am I just going to turn around and show up healed and fixed? Hey guys, I did it. I'm back. No, I want to show actionable items. Like, how do we get out of financial debt, and how do we recover financially, and how do we plan for the future, and how do we teach our children, and how do we learn men learn from my mistakes so you don't continue those, and learn from your own and stop the bleeding. It's okay to stop and press restart and reset. And that's what I've done, and that's what I'm doing. And I want to share that with you. I want to thank you so much to all of the men who've reached out to me that I don't know, crying, like how they got my number, I don't know, but crying on the phone, talking about how they felt released, or they felt heard, or they felt seen on things that they've gone through. Men, women as well. A lot of women have reached out for the same things, either themselves or their loved ones or their sons that they're raising, the whole 9 yards. So it was my intention to just kind of free myself. And I said, if I help one person, then that'd be great. And the countless amount of people that have reached out, I just thank you guys so much. So this is, I'm showing you my truth. And so you're going to see me. I'm the case study. And if you can learn anything from it, I want to share these people that I'm putting in place to help me, and hopefully they can help you. One thing I am very passionate about is I let people run in their lanes, in their skill set. I know things that I'm good at and know things that I'm not good at. So I like to I like to empower people in their lane. So that's all this is going to be. It's going to be a few parts of people that is coming on and sharing their profession with you and I, so we can help grow, right? So with that being said, again, thank you for all the love and support. I appreciate you guys. And my journey, we're going to be talking about the financial journey and things of that nature. But those of you who've asked, I am in counseling, and it's been going well. I've always been an advocate of counseling. I've seen a counselor multiple times before, and I'm back in counseling now and going well. I'm back in the church now too, which is amazing. I grew up in the church. I was always around the church. I grew up in the church from, small town Louisiana, where my grandparents grew up, where I grew up in the summers, and then in Houston. It was just always embedded in me, a relationship with God and in Christ. And then, life happens and you deviate and you go away from it. You think you got it all figured out. And then, I hadn't been physically in a church since the pandemic. And, it was time for me to get back into the church and get more centered and grounded and balanced. And at the same time, it's my job for my son to have that same walk with God and have a healthy fear of God. So I'm back in the church, which is great. And I'm in counseling for my personal things that I have to deal with, which I've shared a lot of the personal stuff with you. But one thing I'm not going to do, I'm not going to turn around. Y'all going to see me as an evangelist. I'm not going to turn into a pastor. People have life stuff that next thing they know, they're a preacher. That's not me. I've always been in the church. I'm just back in it, and I needed it. But anyway, with all that being said, let's get into the financial stuff and how we can all be better. Let's introduce my guest. All right. I'm going to bring this brother on here a quick second. I want to run this stuff down to you, how accomplished this young man is. And I've known him for quite a while. But the gentleman that I'm going to be bringing on here shortly is Mr. Mark Haywood. Mark Haywood joined Northwestern Mutual in 2012, given his extensive knowledge and a top 10 production in the Houston network office. Mark was asked to be featured at the 2016 African American Affinity Summit hosted in Tampa, Florida, in collaboration with the Conference of African American Financial Service Professionals. He's also featured as a panelist on a Northwestern Mutual 2017 Southern Region meeting in Washington, D.C. Mark is a proud alum of Cornell University, where he double majored and received a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Bachelor of Arts in Africana Studies in 2004. During his tenure at Cornell, Mark joined Kappa, I always get that, Kappa Chi chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Everybody makes mistakes, it's all about the noops over here, but he is a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and where he serves as the president. Upon graduation, Mark began his career as a financial analyst at Boeing Company and helped support their International Space Station. During that time, Mark acquired his Master's of Science in Finance from the University of Houston in Clear Lake. He also acquired his Master's of Arts in Biblical Studies at the Grace School of Theology based in the Woodlands, Texas. So my brother is a minister too, so he knows the word. So we're gonna be able to come in on both sides of this thing, right? So y'all help me welcome our brother, Mr. Mark Haywood, to the conversation.
Bless you. Good to be here, my friend. It's an honor and a privilege. And I just want to take a moment to commend you for doing this. A lot of people would not. And I definitely give you high praise and high respect for doing so. So I'm glad to be here. I'm ready to rock and roll. Yeah, we're going to have some fun today.
All right. Well, cool, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Mark, your esteemed resume, man. I've known how talented of a brother you are for a number of years. And, I reached out to you. I reached out, quite frankly, and, just poured out what I was going through. And, you're not only a dynamic businessman and know your wealth management, as people can see, he's a wealth management advisor. You're a good brother, man. And you talk to me from a human element, as well as a man, as an African-American man, as a leader of a household and a husband and the whole 9 yards. So I appreciate you for taking the time to try to educate not only myself, but others who feel that they could use your level of expertise, my man.
Oh, not a problem at all, man. I'm just here to be a servant for humanity. So anything I can do to help, more than willing to do so.
Good. All right, so we're going to get into a few things. So as I was mentioning before my intro, I am actively working with you. You've just taken me on as a client. So I am the case study. We're going to be chopping it up, and we're going to be talking about your general knowledge of wealth management and planning, but also kind of helping me along the way. Because I told people I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be an open book, and hopefully we can learn together. So again, thank you so much for taking the time. And you are passionate about educating our people, so that is great for me. So we'll get into it. But one of the things I want to talk about real quick is, and hear your thoughts on our financial education as our community, as the African American community, or communities of color. Like, where does our education stem from, or lack thereof of education stem from? Because I like to say, and I'd like to hear from you, because you deal with people all the time in the financial space. Well, when I talk amongst the friends and we're at the barbershops and we talk about, some of our deficiencies with money management and planning comes from how we were raised. Not as a negative, not saying that it was intentional, but also looking at some of our communities didn't have the education to pour that into us and to lead us and teach us the ways of how to manage money and how to save and how to earn. Because I saw my grandfather be tight with money. I saw him save money, but he didn't necessarily teach me how to do so. And not saying he didn't want to, they just didn't know how. You know what I'm saying? And Big Mama and them, who hid their money in the mattress, that might not always been the smartest way to do it, but that was their way of doing it, because they had to kind of learn and be self-taught. So can you speak to that on the financial education of the African American or minority community, where it's been, where it is, and where you think it should go?
Sure. I would say, to borrow a phrase from my father, we're not there yet, but we're on the way. That's how I phrase that. We're not there yet, but we're on the way. A lot of us are a product of our environment. And like you said, it's a lot of times through no fault of anyone's own. If, there's an expression, my people perish for lack of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of generations that did not know, did the best that they could, and tried to set up the next generation for as much success as they could based on what they did or did not know. I share with people all the time, part of the reason why I became a financial advisor is because I'm a product of two different grandfathers. What I mean by that is, I've seen on my father's side, for example, that grandfather was a sharecropper turned business owner, ran his own cleaners in Oakland, California, as well as some other businesses for decades. And when he passed away, he took care of everything such that, debt was wiped out. My grandmother never has to, God rest her soul, and God rest his soul, never had to work another day in her life. So I saw how he set up not only my grandmother, but also his children on the path to success.
So you saw a positive side of that, of planning for your family in the future, and when you pass as a husband, as a grandfather to his family.
Right. Now, on the flip side, I also saw the negative side, right? Because my grandfather on my mother's side, unfortunately, was a raging alcoholic who literally partied, gambled, and drank all of his money away. And he did not have any financial plans in place. And he basically left my grandmother by herself, raising 7 kids on not even a high school education and with nothing but minimum wage jobs. Yeah. So because I've seen what happened on the positive side and what I've seen happen on the negative side, my desire in having these types of conversations and the reason why I'm passionate about this series that we're about to put on is because our goal, and you and I have talked about this, is to help people avoid what you and I have seen, which is a financial disaster from which you might not be able to recover. Right. So our goal is, if you happen to find yourself in that set of circumstances, then let's try to give you some helpful tools that can help bring you out. And so that's why I would say that, as far as the African-American community and just minority communities in general, people of color, we're not there yet, but we're on the way. We're starting to have these discussions more. We're starting to be a little bit more open about it. We're starting to do the research, and we're passing on that knowledge. And I've noticed that generation after generation has gradually gotten better. And then, of course, the internet has helped dramatically with that, because now we all have information right at our fingertips. And I would also say another thing that I've noticed that is helping us along the way is that it's similar to the conversation we're having. We're not hoarding the information. We're just trying to get it out there, get it to as many people as possible. Yeah. I was listening to Kevin Hart, and he was having a conversation with John Cena, and he was saying that one of the things that has surprised him is that you cannot imagine how, if you walk up to a CEO or business owner or somebody that's been there and done that, if you just ask, how did you do that? They are excited to give you all the information and tell you about their journey, because they have all of this knowledge, but they have no one to pass it to. So again, not there yet, but we're on the way. And thank God we have the resources to help us get along the way.
Right. Well, so hopefully we can add our little small piece to the puzzle and try to help us get to that ultimate destination of financial literacy in our community. So we're going to do this a couple parts. We're going to do about 4 parts of this, and we're going to break these up into segments and just kind of get people to understand the road that we're going to take here. So today we're going to talk about the basics, right? The basics of budgeting and just getting started. And you're going to be asking me questions and people can follow along. But real quick about the community as a whole, you talked about your grandfather who showed this model of how to do it, and then your other grandfather, your father, not so much. So, but in the community, I remember my grandfather could walk into a bank, they knew who he was, and he had an account, right? He could lean, borrow, whatever he needed to do off of that, just based off his name, right? I mean, obviously he had credit, but it was more of an old school type of credit, barter and trade type stuff. So, but in our communities, it wasn't a lot of that. So I want you to hear what, I'm going to borrow this clip from Earn Your Leisure. Shout out to Earn Your Leisure. They had an interview with the billionaire Robert Smith, and he said this about Black and minority communities. I wanted to get your feedback on this.
The majority of investment capital, even today, is still out of the debt markets. So unfortunately, 70% of our communities don't actually have a branch bank. So depending upon where you live, there's no bank that you have a banking relationship with. You can go and say, hey, I need $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, because look at how, and they don't understand your business.
So he was talking about the divide there, and he talked about with access to capital. How do you feel about that statement when he talks about not having branch banks in certain communities, and we don't really know what, how that works and how to maneuver through those and use them to our advantage?
Oh, that's absolutely accurate. And I would say, by the way, and that applies in his scenario, he was more so talking about business owners, but I would say it applies to both the entrepreneur and the employee, because people of color, particularly African Americans, we tend to be the most underbanked. As he said, there's 70% of us where we don't have a local branch. I would also even take it a step further to say that if there is a branch or a bank in our neighborhoods, it tends to not be a community bank. It tends to be one of the big banks. So that also
that doesn't count, right? Like Chase and Bank of America,
Wells Fargo, et cetera, et cetera. And that's okay. But here's where it can become a little bit sticky. So let's say you have someone who may not have the best credit, right? Now, not saying that all people of color have bad credit. That's not the point. But let's say you have someone that has bad credit, right? Well, if they go to those traditional banks, they have a very hard, rigid set of underwriting standards. If you're trying to get a home loan, a car loan, a business loan, or anything like that. Well, one of the things that I encourage people to do is to get a relationship with a community bank, get a relationship with a credit union or something like that, because those community banks are going to be a lot more hands-on. They're going to be a lot more personal. And yes, they have their set of underwriting standards, but oftentimes they have a lot more flexibility with how they can support you. So yeah, I would say Robert Smith, also, by the way, fellow Cornell alum, got to get that plug real quick. Yeah, I would definitely say he's spot on with what he said.
Yeah. So you know what? It's interesting you say that, because with all that, it's kind of, what's the word? It's eye-opening, because we know it, but we don't necessarily rationalize it and conceptualize how that has put us behind the 8 ball. And it's up to myself to feed into my child for him to have that knowledge and that information. Because even in lending in the automotive industry, I was in finance at one point as a finance manager, and getting these loans and things of this nature bought for people in auto lending. And you would see the relationship that certain people had with private banks or credit unions, and how aggressive the terms and how much they protected their members, and how vast their lending practices were. And, what an advantage. I was like, man, I think when I first talked to you maybe over a year ago, he was like, are you a part of the credit union? Get a part of the credit union. And I made sure I did, because I was able to, my mom is, and I was able to get on, because a child can, you can bring that on as well. And then just out of the blue, I wasn't even thinking. So my father was in the Air Force, right? My father was in the Air Force. And, you see the commercials about USAA and Navy Federal.
Yep.
And, it never really resonated with me. I was like, I'm a direct descendant of I qualify. Mm-hmm. So since that time, I've joined those credit unions, so for those people who can do that, it was just, that was just something I was just letting sit idly by and not even thinking about doing. So I thank you for saying that. I think more people need to look into those type of lenders instead of the big banks.
Absolutely. And again, we're not trashing the big banks. We're not saying that there's anything wrong with them, but I always encourage people, have flexibility and have options. That's all we're saying.
Got it. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. So what do you got for me today? So we are on the part 1 basis. It's going to be a 4-part series. And at the end of today, we're going to take about 5 to 10 minutes and answer any questions in the chat. I don't have a moderator today, so thank you guys for all the comments. Talk amongst yourselves for right now. But at the last few minutes, I'm going to look at the comments and we're going to answer some questions. So stay in there with us. And we'll get to you guys towards the end. But we're going to be 4 parts, right? 4 parts of this. And then the 5th part is going to be all Q&A. So if you guys stay along with us on this ride, take your notes. And if certain things weren't explained or answered in the initial questions after each segment, on our 5th one, we're going to do a complete question and answer. Mark has agreed to do that for us. Okay? All right, Mark. All yours.
All right. Perfect. If you're able, are you able to pull up? I have some slides to kind of help govern the conversation. All right.
There you go.
So, couple things that I wanted to point out that I think is important to help shape our discussion. Number 1, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. And the reason why I say that is because you and I only have 30 to 45 minutes. So we are not going to be able to cover every single thing for everybody's unique situation. But the premise behind this is to try to get as much general information that can help a broad swath of people as possible. And I'm mentioning this because I don't want somebody hopping in your comments, trashing this podcast because we didn't go over everything. And that's not me. Oh, well, I'm sorry. We did our best.
I've faced enough slander in the last few weeks, bro. I'm good. Trust me.
Okay. All right.
I'm good. I'm super good. But I lost my train. Okay. And this is based on, I just want to make sure that this is based on me and my situation.
Yes.
And I'm recovering financially and planning, because when I talked about, when I hear other men that have called me, they talked about some of the same mistakes that they've made. And they always like, look, I'm not no trash ass dude sitting on the couch playing the game or not working hard or da. I've always been able to earn. That's never been the issue, to earn the money. That's easy. It's this part of it. So thank you again. Let's get it.
No problem. Another thing to be aware of is that while this seminar is designed to help everyone, it will specifically address Black concerns, if that hasn't been evident already, right? Also, I thank you for saying that this is going to be a live case study utilizing your situation. The one thing I want to emphasize is that this is a judgment-free zone. Rashid, regardless of how bad you think it is, I promise you I've seen worse. And to anyone that's listening and watching, regardless of what your situation is, I promise I've seen worse. So please do not hesitate to hop in the comments, send a question, et cetera, or even save your questions until the end to the Q&A. Again, judgment free. Also, I am a fiduciary. This is a very fancy word that basically just says that everything that I say has to be in your best interest. Okay. Has to be in your best interest. I am licensed. I am credentialed. I have to be very careful and mindful of what I say. I have to mention that because there's a lot of internet gurus and people on TikTok and people on IG that are saying a whole bunch of stuff that if you follow their advice, it will get you locked up. Okay. So
I got the real today. We're no scamming over here.
Right. Exactly. So I just want to make mention of that. Also, and this is important. There is no such thing as a free lunch, and there is no such thing as free game. So this is going to cost in some shape, form, or fashion. You know, Rashid, it costs you to, get the software, have the computer, have the cameras and all of that. But even beyond that, it's costing you a level of vulnerability and transparency that people are not accustomed to and may cause you some discomfort. So what I would encourage everybody that's listening or that's watching, please make sure that you honor what it is costing him by liking, subscribing, and making sure that you follow him. Okay. I just want to always support you, brother.
I appreciate that.
No doubt. All right. Let's dig into it.
All right.
So we said that we were going to talk about everybody, but we want to specifically address Black issues, right? So quick statistics. Black folk make up less than 14% of the population. But interestingly enough, remember how I said that we're not there yet, but we're on the way? So if you look at our incomes and how those incomes are starting to grow, there has been 63% growth for people of color who have incomes over $125,000 a year. There's been 89% growth for people of color who have had incomes over $150,000. And this is the biggest one. Incomes over $200,000 has grown 138% over the course of time.
Wow.
All that leads to African-American purchasing power right now at about $1.2 trillion. All right. $1.2 trillion. So bottom line is we got money. All right.
And we move the needle. Like
we move the needle. Absolutely. I told someone the other day, there is no avenue, endeavor, or venture in America where when Black folks show up with their dollars, it does not become profitable. It doesn't exist.
Right.
Now, that being said, there are some other things that we need to consider, right? If we compare ourselves to other communities, specifically our white counterparts, right? We are lagging behind when it comes to median and average wealth. And then it becomes even more striking when you start looking at it based on, are you college educated or not college educated? So what does this mean for us? It means that Black earning potential has gone up, Black purchasing power has gone up, but Black wealth comparatively has remained flat, right? We're making more, we're spending more, but we're not necessarily accumulating more. So I wanted to utilize that to kind of shape and frame our discussion. So the purpose of this discussion is to really find ways to improve our finances. And a lot of that, and this is what we're going to deal with today, starts with controlling what is controllable, and that is ourselves. I tell everybody all the time, you can be hired today, fired tomorrow, working today, laid off tomorrow. You can be healthy today, sick tomorrow. You can be here today, gone tomorrow.
Right.
So there's a lot in this world we cannot control. But what we can control is we can control ourselves and we can control what we do with our money. So the rest of our conversation is going to be centered around three parts: controlling our behaviors, controlling our budget, and then doing some introspective evaluation, looking inward and really taking a self-assessment. All right.
Yeah,
so
I need all that. Let's get it.
That's right. All right. So let's get into it. Let's talk about controlling our behaviors, right? I would say that there are really three detrimental behaviors that hinder wealth building and financial security. The first one is what I call the new money trap. So here's what I mean by the new money trap. So Rashid, you mentioned earlier that you've never had a problem making your way, earning a buck, etc. I want you to think about the first time you got that first big payday. All right. So think about that. You remember when that was?
Yeah, for sure.
Talk to me about that.
It was a moment in time for me that I'll never forget because I had shifted my profession. Because it's one thing that is a gift and a curse. I've always bet on myself. And most times I'd come out on top. So I left the profession of 10 years when I was a school teacher and a basketball coach. I coached in college and at the high school level and taught school. And during that time, I would do some side entrepreneurial stuff, promoting and things of that nature. You know me through I used to do a lot of event promoting back then. So anyway, in 2013, I decided to step out on faith, and I was done. My time with teaching had gone, had passed. I was ready to move on for another challenge, and I jumped into the auto industry, and I was immediately a success. You know, top sales, top this, top that, promotion, and that leads to coming from a school teacher, coming from college where I graduated with honors, and I proved my point from the high school people that said, you know, in ninth grade, I needed to go to some physical education classes, and then 10th grade trying to work out of that, and then 11th grade finally getting out of that, and then boom, graduating and going to school, graduate, da 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 da. So with all that, it was always, let me show you the next one. Let me show you the next one. So from a school teacher, then you go to selling cars and you start making all this money. Then you got to sell the lifestyle stuff, right? So then when I start getting big money, the houses, cars, the houses come. You know, on the golf course, I had my own golf cart, you know, country club memberships and all this kind of stuff, right? I made it, right? So that's the big check moment for me, but I wasn't necessarily doing the things that we're going to be talking about.
So I want to summarize everything you just said. You were in high school and you were broke. You became a school teacher and you were barely above broke, because let's call it what it is.
Right.
We can all admit that teachers are overworked and underpaid, right? That just is what it is, right? Then you became a top salesperson in the automotive industry. Income took off. And once your income took off, you started spending the money. Why? Because you made the money. It just makes sense. If I have it, I might as well spend it, right?
Like the great poet Biggie Smalls said.
Right, exactly. Or if I were to quote 2 Chainz, right? I'm riding around, I'm getting it. It's mine. I spend it, right?
Right. Facts.
So that's part of the problem, right? It's that just because I have it, I have to spend it. It's what I call income creep. So you basically say that since my income has jumped dramatically, suddenly I have to make all these dramatic changes to my lifestyle to keep up with my newfound income, which can lead to overspending, right? And I always say that if you don't have the basic fundamentals when you're broke, you're definitely not going to have sound fundamentals once you start making money.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the first problem. The second problem I would say is called living the video. All right. Living the video. Everybody wants to live like the Jay-Z Big Pimpin' video. Let's just call it what it is, right? What did the great philosopher Chad Butler, aka Pimp C, say? Everybody want a ball, right? Everybody wants the ball. Everybody wants the fancy car, the watch.
Everybody. And so I'm going to stop you right there, because that's one of the things when I talked about in my follow-up video that I did over a month ago. It's like, listen, I'm going to be as transparent and open as possible for you guys. I'm going to keep it 100. So what I'm saying to people is, like, this is my financial house has been broken, and I'm breaking it all the way down, releasing everything and starting my foundation from the beginning and do it the right way. But there's nothing wrong with, I'm still going to want and get nice stuff. Like, it's okay to want nice things. And that's what I want people to understand. Go get whatever you and your wage allows you to get. Act your wage, right? And if your wage is to have nice things, if you want to aspire to get to that, nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to teach this minimalistic life, but you have to make tough decisions, be disciplined. And that's what I haven't been. So that's where we're at with this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the last thing would be what I call charging it to the game. I'll raise my hand, right? If it is way easier for me to swipe a card than to pull out cash, I'm just be brutally honest, right? One of the things that my dad has tried to drill into me, he's always said, son, keep a little bit of cash on you. I'm like, why? I got my card. I got my debit card. I got my credit card. I got my, blah, 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 right? Well, the problem is if you don't have the cash, but you do have the card, well, you start developing this mentality of a slippery slope, which is, well, I ain't got the cash now. I'll just charge it to the card and I'll pay it off later. And then you come across something else and you charge it up. You say, I'll pay it off later. And then next thing you know, you blink, several years have passed by and you're like, well, I didn't quite pay it off because I didn't have it all that month. But you know what? I'll pay the minimum.
That's me, man. That's been
right.
Me.
Right. I'll pay the minimum just to, make sure I keep my credit good. So that's the other concern, is that we have, in order to live the video, we've basically financed our fun. That's how I would say it. The problem is a lot of us are out here financing our fun rather than just outright paying for our fun. And again, we're not saying that it's wrong, but left unchecked, and like you said, not in an undisciplined fashion, it can produce a lot of headaches.
So, yeah.
With that being said, I would say that where discipline lacks, the best thing that you can do is create institutional discipline to rein in your behaviors. Make life systematic and automatic. All right. I say it again. Make life as systematic and automatic as possible. If the concern with the new money trap is I spend every dollar as soon as it comes in, set up your bank accounts to where every time you get paid, your savings account gets paid. Every time you get paid, I'm putting the money away for, emergencies. I'm putting money away for this big purchase I'm going to make. I'm putting money away for, my kids, et cetera, et cetera. Just have your bank. You can literally go into your website, and usually for your bank, you can set it up to where it'll just sweep the money every 1st and 15th, right? So that's one thing. Now, as far as living the video, I want to be clear. We're not saying don't have fun. Like you just said, Rasheed, we're not telling everybody to live like paupers. No, that's not the premise. Yeah. You work hard for your money. You deserve to enjoy your money, but make sure that you have dedicated spending. Just put in your budget. Hey, I'm going to spend X amount of money every month to go to happy hour, go on this trip, hang out with my girls, et cetera, et cetera. And also have that dedicated spending where, look, one thing that's become really big with us as of late, particularly over the last 5 to 7 years, the travel bug has hit everybody, right?
Oh yeah. We're traveling. Especially since COVID, man, everybody's just moving all over.
Once we got outside, we was outside, right?
And we're still out.
and we're still out. And I swear to God, if I see one more Santorini dress pic, right? I mean, like, again, anyway, me and my wife joke about that all the time. I just had to throw that out there. So anyway, there's nothing wrong with having fun. Just make sure that you have fun within reason. You need, just like we said, you can have your automatic saving for your emergency fund and your, big purchase fund. You can automate it to where you say, hey, I'm going to move this money over here so that I can go on this trip in the next 3 months. I'm going to move this money over here because I know I'm going to buy Christmas gifts the same time every year. I'm going to buy birthday gifts the same time every year. Just make sure you have a dedicated spending plan. And then lastly, when it comes to credit cards, if you have a swipe problem, be more strategic about your card use. This is not an endorsement of any particular product, but the one thing that my wife has caused me to appreciate is that if you have an American Express card, you got to pay that off at the end of every month.
Right.
Like point blank, period, full stop. Like that is what it is, right? So if you don't have the discipline to know that you're going to pay everything off at the end of the month, try to use those cards that are going to, again, institutional discipline, make you pay them off.
Now talk about, because a lot of people know this, have heard this, and have experienced it, especially with American Express, right? Mm-hmm. We've always heard that. But on its face, can you talk about, I know you're not necessarily a credit analyst, but you know how this all works. For those who don't know, or when you don't pay it at the end of every month, what happens? Because they still give you a minimum amount option. Can you talk about that a little bit more quickly?
Sure. All that happens is that your small problem becomes a progressively larger problem because not only are you earning interest on that principal balance or whatever I'll just give an example. Let's say you charged up $10,000, right? You're getting interest on that. But also what that means is that every month that you only cover that interest payment, that next month you're still going to get another interest payment. Or quite frankly, oftentimes that minimum payment is actually even less than the interest payment, by the way.
Right.
So what that means is that interest that you didn't all pay off, the next month, you're going to get interest on the principal and on the interest that you didn't pay off. Exactly. And then it just keeps spiraling, or can spiral out of control. It can grow exponentially.
I learned the hard way. I'm one of the ones. I had my American Express. Sometimes it would take care of that month, and the others I just pay the minimum, and then that would start to pile up, and then it's a snowball, and it's like, how the heck am I going to get out of it? And then you got this other stuff you got to, because it's swiping, like you said, but it's swiping without any consequence. It's swiping just to enjoy what I think and feel I deserve, but I'm not putting, you know what I'm saying? Because we can rationalize all the time. And a lot of times people do that, and I do that all the time. I deserve this. I've been working my butt off, or I've been a good person. I've been a good father. I've been a good friend, a good husband, boyfriend, wife, whatever. I deserve this. You know what I'm saying? But yes, you do. But is it going to affect you down the road where it's actually the fun that you had is going to turn into much more misery? And that's one of the things that I have learned and pulling myself out from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So those will be some of the behaviors that we need to correct. Now let's talk about correcting or controlling our budget. So recently came across this clip from Damon John when he was on The View. And I like what he said, because he said that money is very simple when it comes in. And he said it doesn't matter if you're making $3 or $3 million. He said that the first dollar goes to what you have to pay, your bills. The second is usually investment. And the third is what you would like to have, but don't have to have. So I'm going to say that one more time. Money is very simple. When it comes in, the first dollar goes to what you have to pay, which is your bills. The second is usually an investment. And the third is what you would like to have, but don't have to have. So at my company, we actually say that the way that you need to break this down is what we call 20-20-60. If you want to have an acronym, remember back in our day, we had that TV show 227.
Yes.
Well, I would say this is 226. All right, 20-20-60. Right,
Okay.
just drop a number at the end. Right, so 226. 20% of your budget should go to saving and investing. 20% should go to discretionary expenses, just having fun. 60% should just go to your essential expenses. Keeping your roof over your head, your lights on, paying off your student loans, et cetera, et cetera. This is how you should break up your budget. And the reason why we're pointing this out is because, and this is also something that Damon even said, the problem is we don't do number one first, which is pay what we have to pay. We overdo it on the third part, which is to do what we like to have, but don't have to have. We do it to the extent that we don't do anything in section 2. And eventually what ends up happening is that you end up finding yourself getting behind. And what do we say? You end up finding yourself where you have to start financing things. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I can't pay this light bill. I'll just go ahead and put that on the credit card. Now I'll worry about it next month. Or, you know what? I'll charge this. So again, and then it starts bleeding and eroding and eradicating everything else along the way. So this is how you want to balance things. Again, 2-2-6, 20% saving and investing, 20% having fun, 60% pay your bills. Pay your bills first, have an investment, do what you like to have, but don't have to have.
Okay. So let's do some real life application to this.
Okay.
Because a lot of us heard this. I've seen this and heard this before. And you started with those intentions, but then what happens for those, primarily, mainly myself, who know these things, have done this at times or, intervals in life, but sometimes they fall short. So let's say me in this place, the essential expenses, right? A lot of that has been moved from the savings and investing has been moved from that quadrant over to the essential expenses, right? And the discretionary expenses move into the essential expenses, or vice versa, and how it moves. So when those funds are no longer equal, and let's say that 60% of essential stuff has moved to 40%, and then you spent more percentage on the discretionary expense, how do we get out of that? Because this is where part of the recovery mode, and I'm assuming this is what you're going to be showing and teaching me. Once we didn't follow this, because I didn't follow this, so now what?
Okay, so I'm actually glad that you brought that up. So I would say that you need to make sure that your money is efficiently and effectively allocated. That's how you start getting out of this. So remember what I said earlier, right? If you don't have the discipline, do institutional discipline. Make your money systematic and automatic. So let me give you an example. If the concern is that your buckets are not properly allocated, you're not doing the 20-20-60 because you're overspending in these areas and underspending in these areas.
And you got to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right. One of the reasons, besides just outright improper behaviors, that happens is because too much of our money is commingled. We're spending everything out of the same bucket of money, right? Yes. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is say, okay, well, how about this? Have this bank account and that pays all your bills. Have this bank account, that's where you have fun. Have this bank account, that's where you save and that's where you invest, right? And if you need to go to an even further extent, again, we're encouraging, if you have those relationships with big banks, and hopefully you have relationships with community banks, use one bank to pay all your bills, use one bank, and that's where you have fun and do your investing and stuff like that. Right. To the extent that you can separate and consolidate these buckets rather than having all the money commingled, it'll help with a lot of that. So that's part one. Now, part two is that you can start doing some of these steps that I'm going to start walking you through. So, for example, one of the easiest ways that you can help alleviate some of this is that sometimes the reason why these things get out of whack is because you're not paying yourself properly. I'll say it again. You're not paying yourself properly. So let me give an example. And I'm going to give it an example on both the entrepreneurial side as well as the employee side.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're breaking that down. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's say on the employee side, right? one of the easiest ways to give yourself a pay raise is to check your inflow. Are you taking advantage of all of those exemptions that, when you go into your online portal, or even when you first sign up for a job, they're going to have you fill out that W-4. They're going to have you fill out, I have X amount of dependents. I want to have X amount of exemptions and stuff like that. Are you taking full advantage of that? So that I would say that's one way that you can make sure that you're getting the appropriate amount of money, because you might be overpaying the federal government in taxes that you're getting deducted, right? Now, on the entrepreneurial side, I would say one of the things that is a concern with a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to is that they are spending so much money channeling their money back into the business, and they're not taking enough for themselves. You'd be amazed at how many times I have conversations with entrepreneurs and I'm looking through all of their numbers and I literally have to tell them, take more money. You have it. It's there. You work hard. Eventually, if you don't pay yourself, you're going to get burned out, right? So be willing to pay yourself a reasonable salary out of your business, right? Also, eliminate, if you're an employee, eliminate unnecessary employee paid company benefits. I'm sure every last one of us has been on a job where we can log into that online human resources portal and it says, okay, this is what you're paying in your life insurance, your health insurance. This is what you're paying on, your FSA and your HSA, and all of this other type stuff, right? Well, you'd be amazed at how many times I have a sit down with a client and they ask, hey, can we go over my company benefits? And I start asking questions like, do you know what that is?
And they don't know.
Do you know that you're paying like $50 a month for it? No, I didn't.
So I'm going to stop you right there. So I'm glad you said this. So it's important, not only because you hear paying yourself, give yourself a raise as an entrepreneur, you hear that all the time. And then me as an entrepreneur, I would commingle funds again to pay for the business, but then I need to pay the car note, or I need to pay this, and it comes out of the business, it comes here. And but it's interesting you said, even someone who's employed, who gets maybe a set salary or set pay scale, they still could be mismanaging how they're paid or what they take home by not knowing everything. I've never thought of it that way, but go ahead. I just want to stop you there, and so you can.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And then also be intentional about your 401k contributions. If you're maxing out your 401k, but you're barely making your bills month to month, you're probably putting too much away in your 401k, right? Now, I want to make sure I'm clear. This is not to tell everybody stop putting money in your 401k, right? I always tell everybody, if your 401k is giving you a match, that's free money. Go get the free money, right? But I've also had to have conversations with clients where they're doing so much to plan for the future, good to plan for the future, that they're not taking care of the present, right? So I always say there has to be balance. So just make sure that you're very intentional about your 401k contributions. Again, if we were to look on the entrepreneur side, similar scenario. A lot of entrepreneurs, they'll set up for themselves like a solo 401k, or they'll set up this deferred compensation plan, or they'll set up, this strategy, SEP IRA or something like that to make a deduction on their taxes. And that's good. And that's great. But again, we don't want to make sure that we're locking so much money up for the future that we're not taking care of the day to day. So that's what I always recommend to people. Just nothing wrong with saving for the future, but let's just make sure we're intentional about it.
Got it.
So that's why we're called checking your inflow, right? Then also itemize your outflow. Take the time to actually write out all your bills. Oftentimes when I ask people what their budget is, I'll say, out of curiosity, what are you spending per month? If you add up everything, and I'm talking about, rent, mortgage, utilities, going out to eat, having fun, buying clothes. If you add up all of what you spend on a month-to-month basis, how much is that? They'll give me a number, and then I'll say, okay, now, do you mind if we go through an exercise to actually see how accurate that number is? Mm-hmm. I've seen that number be as on point as like 99% accurate, and I've also seen it be like 40% off because they weren't factoring in all the haircuts that they get every month. They weren't factoring in they're getting their hair and their nails done. They weren't factoring in, oh, you know what? I do have those subscriptions to Netflix and Hulu and Spotify and Apple Music and all of those small $5, $10, $20 subscriptions that you don't think about. Then when you add it up at the end of the month, you realize you're spending like $200, stuff like that, right? So I always recommend write out all of your monthly bills, because once you've written out all of what you're spending on a month-to-month basis, you can identify potential areas of saving. I go to the gym once a month. Do I really need that gym membership? I have, here's an example, a real example. I'm having a conversation with a client and he's talking about he has a boat dock fee. And I'm like, well, how often do you get on that boat? And once a quarter. So you're
Man, that's
paying
one of the
for
worst
something
investments
every
ever.
month for something
Yeah.
that you only use every 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Okay. Then we have to get in the conversation about why did you have the boat? Stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So again,
So with that, with with itemize your outflow, and then again, this is based upon me and the conversations we've had. It's interesting. I want to stop right there and write out your monthly bills. How many of us heard that? I've heard that. I've been asked to do that many, many times. And if I'm being honest and transparent, I didn't complete the task. I didn't finish it. I didn't do it right. I didn't do it thoroughly. There's all kinds of apps out there that people have led me to, or that I've signed up for and didn't finish it. And then when you starting to break those things down and look back through my own lens and through counseling, it's like some of that is you're scared.
Yes.
Let's talk about how many. I'm just scared to do it because I don't want to see like some people. I don't want the bad news, so they avoid it. But that happens and that's what I've pledged my life to no longer do, is because it just keeps going, and then it's just the house crumbles like mine did. Like it all falls down, and then you're alone.
I would say let's go back to what I said. As a governing principle behind this conversation, right? This is a judgment-free zone. No matter how bad you think it is, I promise I've seen worse. I tell clients that all the time because a lot of times we don't want to hold a mirror up in front of ourselves. So to your point, you don't complete the task because it's bad. You just don't want to see how bad it is.
Bad.
It's like that person that, you know what? I've got this ache in my body, but I refuse to go to the doctor because they might tell me it's cancer.
Right. And then who's the most prevalent people that we know that would do that? Black men.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely.
Black men. And who am I? I'm a black man here with these financial issues, and some of them, and then for that black man who wants to be that guy, who wants to be the leader, who wants to be the head of house, the one who works his ass off and works and pours into his kids, pours into his family. I want all that. Give me that smoke. I want that pressure, but at the same time, we don't know how to manage it. We're scared. We're to ask for help, say we don't understand, say we don't get it, act like we got it figured out because we live the life of figuring it out. But eventually that stuff catches up with you. And again, the house is crumbled.
Absolutely. I would even throw another one in there. I would say some of it is fear, some of it is ego.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
A lot of us, we want the pressure. We don't want the accountability.
Yes.
We want the glitz. We want the glamour. We want to be able to, do et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then when it's time for someone to show you, hey, there might be a better way. Well, I've made it this far on my own. Who are you to tell me, et cetera, et cetera. So
I've been guilty of that too. I've been guilty of that because, it's funny. Again, we talk about the fine line of stuff. Like a lot of, because I equate a lot of things to sports and athletics because I played those, in basketball in college and had all these idols and stuff like this. And it's almost, it's hard for men. And I want women to understand sometimes kind of the lens that we look through. And what I mean by that is, or what motivates us. What I mean by that is we look at two different things, especially if we equate a lot of women out there who are men equate things to sports. We see like the greatest of all times, like the Muhammad Ali's, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe's. What do we all know about them? They had egos out of this world. That's what made them successful. And you used to hear people say, Michael Jordan is a jerk. Michael Jordan had to be a jerk to be the best ever. You know what I'm saying? So it's that balance. Like, I need an ego to go out here and face this world as a black man and be successful, blah, 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 blah. But I got to turn that stuff off when it's damaging myself and my relationships and my growth. And that's one of the things that I've always struggled with, that I'm actively working on. And I see myself getting better at letting the ego go, checking your ego at the door, because if you can take those 2 steps back, we can take 10 steps forward if we just let go of the ego. So that was huge. I'm glad you said that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I know we're going a little bit long. I don't want to go past an hour. So again, we got about 6 minutes.
Yep, no problem. The good news is we're actually coming down the pipe.
Okay. So, and then anytime left, we'll still take a few questions.
Yep.
But the whole intro was a little lengthy, but going forward, we're going to keep these a lot shorter.
Yep.
But go ahead.
All right, no problem. Another thing, step 2, reduce your bills and reduce your debt. Once you've itemized everything, once you've laid everything out, you'll be amazed at the amount of money that you can save yearly just by making simple tweaks to your monthly bills. So some quick hits to reduce your bills: price shop your utility bills, especially if you live in Texas, and especially if you're talking about electricity. There's like hundreds of companies that you can go to see who is going to give you the best deal. Same thing with your cell phone service. Price shop and bundle your property and casualty insurance. Rethink subscribing to that deluxe cable or streaming package. Again, I cut the cord, 4 or 5 years ago. And then I started paying attention to all of the subscriptions that I was getting. And I was like, I'm almost paying the same amount for a cable.
I do the same analysis. Like, since all this has happened,
right,
in recent weeks and now over a month, I've taken an assessment of all that stuff. It's like, man, that's just as much as I was paying with DirecTV or whoever. But go ahead.
Right, exactly. Also, reducing your debt. If your credit card debt is out of whack, or you even have some personal loans that are out of whack, consider consolidating and balance transfers of that debt when it's appropriate. Also, consider renegotiating or refinancing your mortgage if it makes sense. And I had to caveat that by saying if it makes sense, because let's just call it what it is. We're kind of in a high interest rate environment right now.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Depending on your unique situation, refinancing right now might not be the best move. And then also contest your taxes, property taxes, income taxes, et cetera, if you have a legitimate case. I always have to caveat if you have a legitimate case, because we're not just trying to throw up a flare to, some government entity just to have them all up in your business.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, sure.
But if it makes sense to contest that and it's going to reduce your debt and reduce your bills, do it. Go for it. Or hire an advocate that will do it on your behalf.
Got it.
And go ahead.
I'll let you bring it home.
Yep.
But you said something that's important, and it just hit me that I want to say, in general, to people watching and to myself. I had a new practice since I'm dedicated to breaking this cycle of my behavior. Answer your phone. Answer the phone. Now, why do I say that? Many times I wasn't answering my phone because the bill collectors, the scams, the this and the third, I don't got it, so I don't want to talk to you. None of that. And I'll get into some of this when I bring on the credit guy, but two things that I've learned, and my grandfather taught me this, and one of the things, I did this the other week. I said, you know what? You're going to answer every single phone call. Let's go. You want to do this? Let's go be accountable. Let's face the music. And one of the phone calls I answered, what I wouldn't have normally, was a guy from my energy provider offer me an additional discount.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, look at God.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I never would have answered the phone. So you just never know. I answered that phone and he saved me like $18 like per month. Like that adds up.
That's real money. That adds up. Exactly.
I never answered the phone. So, and then the other thing is just to talk to your bill collectors, your creditors, and have conversations with them and tell them your intention is to make things right, to return to at some point good standing. How can you work with me? Versus just not answering the phone and sending them the voicemail.
Right.
Like that's another practice that I've implemented that I'm doing daily. So, and again, just with that when you talked about reducing your bills, just you don't even know who's calling you to maybe even throw you an olive branch to reduce your bill.
Right. Absolutely. And then step 3, last step is find ways to increase your savings by spending less and saving more. So some quick hits on spending less. I have observed that there is a 1 to 2 spending ratio when you buy groceries versus dining out. I promise you, going out to eat and especially for entrepreneurs, we're go-getters, we're really busy, we don't have time to cook. But I promise you, if you buy more groceries at home, it will cut your dining out bill in half. All right. So usually groceries are about half of what it costs for you to go out to eat.
For sure.
Another thing, happy hour at home costs way less than happy hour at the bar.
Man, especially at the Black Club, man. They Casamigos, and man, that's $25.
Exactly. All gym memberships are not created equal. Evaluate if that makes sense for you or not. If you're not now, this is big for me, somebody who wears a suit, so I threw this in here, right? If you're not dry cleaning your clothes, reevaluate if you need the cleaners, because all they're doing is doing the same laundry or washing machine process that you are at home. So if you can save money there, do it. Also, as far as saving more, again, systematic and automatic. Redirect any savings that you find in your budget to your emergency fund and increase your short to mid-term savings accounts. And as far as introspective evaluation, well, the good news is we really don't have to go through this because we actually went through most of these questions as we were talking. So I would just say, unless there's something specifically on here that you want to address.
No, and anything we left off, we can get to and finish up on the next one.
Okay.
Like I said, I didn't want to go past an hour here. So I think that's some good information, get people started, people understand what we're doing. And again, this is just for me to, open myself up some more and just show the path to financial recovery and planning.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's important now. It almost feels like it's a new kind of calling for me, especially for men. For Black men, it's just, again, thank you for everyone who's reached out. So hopefully this can help a few people. So anyway, does anybody in the audience or in the comments have any questions, or people that are watching? We'll take a few questions from Mark, and then we'll get on out of here and see you next time. We're gonna try to be as consistent as possible, but me and Mark both have other jobs. But it's either going to be my best availabilities or Thursdays and Sundays. So we may shoot for one of those days, but as of right now, let's try to tentatively come back next Sunday, depending on your schedule, Mark. But you guys keep watching and following the page. Please like and subscribe and turn those alerts on, and we'll let you know what's to come. So I don't see any questions from the live, and so I guess that's it.
All right.
Any parting words?
Yeah. So I'll just say it's for everyone that's listening. So these are some takeaways, and this is your homework. So now that you're empowered with this information to be better off today than you were yesterday, here are some challenges. First challenge: identify a dedicated amount per month that you can save. Number 2, itemize your budget and try to reallocate your dollars as close as possible to that 20-20-60. And then also, again, please like and subscribe to the Ages and Stages podcast so that you can stay tuned to part 2 through 4 of this financial planning and recovery series.
Phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. And again, Mark is a wealth management expert at Northwestern Mutual Financial Services. Or I don't know if that's the full name of it. I'm sorry. I don't want to butcher that.
Enough. It's fine.
Northwestern Mutual. He's a big dog over there, and he's given us his time to help us and try to help me recover and plan for my financial future. Thank you again, Mark. And until next time, brother, be safe, and I'll be in touch, my man.
God bless you. Talk to you soon, man.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.